Jigsaw copycat.
This is gonna go sideways fast.
I should really get some chalk for this thing. So Spiral is the 9th movie now in the Saw franchise. Now, I am very torn by this. To give you a baseline, I am a massive fan of Saw. So much of a fan, in fact, I have genuinely, not with me, it's in my old house, one of these folders from this scene with Kerry when she's on the bed looking through evidence. I own one of those folders from that movie in that scene. That's just an awesome bit of detail. I have that. So when I heard this was coming out, and apparently Chris Rock, of all people, did not expect that, wrote the treatment for it. I'm really excited for it. Now that I've seen it, not quite so much. Right out the gate, Chris Rock, I really enjoyed him in this movie though. I thought he was really good. He didn't just get the job done, he played his part really, really well. His partner, don't recognise him too much, although he's got one of those faces I feel like I know him from something. Not even going to lie, haven't bothered looking up his IMDb page, but I liked him. William and Zeke, who they are in the movie, played off each other really well. Sam Jackson, obviously his name's on this movie. His name's on it because of it being Sam Jackson, not because of his significance in the movie. So in a nutshell, this movie is like a spin-off. It takes place after the series because the killer in this movie is a copycat of Jigsaw, and you find out not even an accomplice of Jigsaw like Hoffman was. So this is just a completely separate kind of taking forward in time story. Where I think this film was quite good and where it went a bit different was the focus on the police force. So it put a lot of focus on the police force, the kind of corrupt cops, and they were the ones being tested for that, which was different. It was a good change of pace. It wasn't just, you know, junkies, prostitutes, people that have killed somebody, generally speaking. No, so I liked the focus on the police here. It was as much of a Saw movie as it was kind of a detective movie, and that all worked really, really well. Where it starts falling short for me though is looking back. Throughout the movie I was enjoying it, and it's not just that the twist didn't work with me, because you know what, that's fine, it is what it is. When you start looking back at the logistics and the logic of that twist, that it doesn't quite, some of the things don't make sense. Let me explain. So it turns out William, who is Zeke, aka Chris Rock's new partner, joined the police force to effectively enact revenge. He is the copycat killer. The reason why is Zeke, years ago, had a partner who was a corrupt person, shot a witness to cover, you know, another police officer. That witness's child was William. One small thing. I've done that. That's two. One small thing. There's a moment where Zeke has a dead rat on his desk because he's just thought of as the rat in the precinct. None of the police like him and none of them respect him, so he just puts that in the bin. Now this is years later. That kid is now William, who must have went through education, went through police training, at least been within the police for a while, and is now the position he's in. And the precinct are still leaving rats on his desk. Like, it's not great in any way. But years later, like this must be at least 10 plus years later, and they're still putting just a rat out there. That I thought was a bit excessive. It didn't quite work. I understood the message, but 10 years on, bit far. But then it calls into question the traps. He made these traps. He built these traps as well. So whilst becoming a detective, he then went to engineering school or night school, or learned it all on his own to put together the traps, which again doesn't quite make sense. And it's that reason that it just takes me way out of this movie. I was with it until the end. I like the fact they were going for the police, the twist is fine, but yeah, he became a police officer just for this reason. Whereas it would have been much easier to have just killed them. Maybe it didn't have as big a message and you wanted to make it this kind of city-wide scare and the police make them scared that Jigsaw was back for them. But there was other ways to do it. Surely you could have just killed the police officer and then left the message out there quite nicely, or put a note on them, left them out in public, and then the public would no doubt start questioning what's going on, and the message would be all the same. Because doing it this way, although he's punishing them, only the police really know what happened. The public still don't know that they're all corrupt and they shouldn't be trusted. So he's making this message, but for the police, doesn't work. doesn't make sense because none of the traps are in like a public place. They're all in like abandoned, disused buildings. And again, that's another thing. It made sense in Saw that Jigsaw had all these locations. He done property development. That was his job. He was an engineer and the property developer. And so with both of those combined, I can believe that he has the ability to make these traps, and it also showed you him drawing out the sketches and his kind of prototypes throughout the years. You'd see them kind of developing as well throughout the movies. And of course he had all the buildings to use and they had connections, which again is something that the movie puts through. That benefits from like 8 movies. These pieces can all slot in and the time's all over the place, and whereas Spiral only has the one movie to kind of develop this and build it up. But give us something to make it believable that as a kid he then just went on this massive mission to learn engineering, found all these locations, was able to not even just design the machines, but build them and make them portable, because one of them's in the police department, and obviously become a detective at the same time. Doesn't quite work. The traps, so obviously the traps, can't put them here. Very gory, I can't show you the footage of them. However, I'll break them down. Kicking it right off the bat, the kind of introduction into the traps. You've got the train trap. Chap has his tongue tied up and he has to essentially jump off of a small ladder, removes his tongue, rips that out to avoid an oncoming train. Now number one, straight away, I think what took me out of the movie was I just thought of the logistics here. Guy's passed out and he wakes up to a TV playing of pre-recorded footage of William, like the new Jigsaw, telling him that the train's going to be here in 2 minutes time and what he needs to do. How could William have known this? He was unconscious. Now, when they were in at least a trap in a room that they could wake up at any time and the trap would play out the same way, that's fine. But this was dependent on the train. So how did he know that he was going to wake up with 2 minutes to go, unless he's now learned chemistry and to use some kind of chemical to knock him out, which he knew? I don't know. So that's what took me out of that trap. It was fine. It done the job. It was this little introduction of bit of scare into the movie. Another trap in the movie was the finger trap. One of the other police officers who's just an arse to Zeke the whole movie. Like, he's just been a prick for the whole rat thing. Again, 10 years on, no need. Anyway, so he's got all his fingers and like Chinese finger traps. If he closes his mouth or opens it, one of the two, pulls him forward, rips off his fingers. In the meantime, to try and put the test along, of course, there's another element. He's in water that's slowly rising with a live electrical cable. That's going to electrocute him, zap him out, kill him dead if he doesn't do it. Now, the issue I've got here is he does it. There's maybe a second of hesitation from him, but other than that, he's doing the trap, letting his fingers go forward to rip off, and he doesn't have enough time to do it. So again, it begs the question, what's the need for all this? Why can't William have just killed these people in maybe a different way, tortured them himself? Doesn't need the whole Spiral and Jigsaw copycat element. He could have done it in his own way. Then you've got the wax trap, which is inside the evidence room of the police department. Now, one thing I didn't like about this, not the trap, just before it, Chris Rock runs in because he finally figures out that the head of the team is in the trap and she's been picked up. Now, people don't like him. Okay, that's fine, they've explained why. People respect her. That's evidenced in the movie. They show that people respect her, her opinion, and what she wants. He comes in screaming that she's been kidnapped. And one of the other kind of prominent characters in the department just goes, yeah, she's in the evidence room, and then walks the opposite direction and doesn't go with them. So she has to like slit her neck, her spinal cord, to stop the wax stripping. Now, looking at the trap, it's not clear how doing this action will stop the wax coming out, for one. So whether it was just to be killed, not quite sure. But anyway, she dies, of course, because nobody lives in this. There's the glass trap. Now, I'm calling bullshit on this, because this is the trap that's in the trailer when Chris Rock picks up like the saw and he's shackled. That's just trailer bait. No one cuts a leg off, no one does the like Saw 1 thing. It's just put in there so they can have in the trailer Chris Rock tied up and pulls up a saw, because then he just finds a key and gets out of the shackle. No problem at all. This is the guy who shot the witness and Chris Rock tries to save him. Now, the trap I did enjoy. So Glass is getting shot at his back and eventually he dies, but Chris Rock at least tries to save him. This is the one where somebody could have intervened. And the final trap is his dad. Sam Jackson is kind of tied up and losing a lot of blood, but William says it's his final test. He has one bullet. You can either shoot something to free his dad or shoot him. That's kind of it. But what I did quite like about this is the kind of twist that they threw on it, that he did drop the dad. He so noticeably put a cable up in front of the door, which Chris Rock just forgot about. Because that cable meant when the SWAT team eventually came in to the room, it raised up Samuel Jackson and released what looked like a shotgun, so the police would then shoot him and kill Zeke's dad. It was a pretty good scene, I'll give it that. Twists and logic and the narrative aside, as a scene and as a trap and a setup, it was enjoyable. I quite liked it. So that's pretty much the kind of rundown of the movie. I just don't understand. I like that they took it somewhere new and they tried something new. It was more cinematic and it went with the police narrative, but it didn't need to be a Saw movie. You know, in both the real world and in this movie's lore, this William didn't need to be a copycat to get the revenge he wanted. He could have just killed these police officers. That would have been just as effective, or tortured them in some other way. I'm torn though, because I don't know if I want a new film to just tie in to the existing saga, or whether it just becomes its own story now moving forward. I don't imagine Chris Rock will now be in these forever, so they kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit there. This film being a standalone in another film which will kind of tie back doesn't quite add up. We didn't need to see more police trying to be Saw. It made sense at least with Hoffman, because he was the apprentice. He learned from Jigsaw, went through a trap, etc. So he knew how to do the traps and kind of had that mentality. But yeah, we didn't need this movie. It was fine for what it was. Hell, I'd never go into a Saw movie expecting it to come out as a masterclass. But do you want a kind of just a shut off your mind horror movie? By all means. This is certainly it for you. Will I remember the movie? 100%. As with all the Saws, the traps will stick with you. But this one had a bit more of the narrative, so I'll probably remember that here, because it was a lot cleaner of a movie. Couple of flashbacks, but it just made sense and very simple to follow, whereas I know the other Saws can be a bit more difficult when you're trying to piece a scene into where it would fit in the timeline of the existing, like 5 movies, for example. Let me know what you thought. If you've seen Spiral, if you agree with me or disagree with me, please do let me know. And hell, while you're down there, if you want to, leave a wee like. It does make me happy. I see a wee like in the video. That's always awesome. But anyway, thank you for watching.